వేసుకో
स्लाइड शो करना
स्लाइड शो बस कंटिन्यू स्लाइड
काम क्या है
खत्म होने के बाद स्टॉप
मेरा इमेज आता है नहीं आता मुझे
वो लोगों को आता आपको नहीं
मुझे नहीं आता मुझे कुछ भी नहीं आता ओके गुड मॉर्निंग वन एंड ऑल today I am going to tell you about estrogens. So estrogens are the natural estrogens and progesterones are the endogenous hormones that produce numerous physiological effects, endocrine actions involved in the control of ovulation, the cyclical preparation of the reproductive tract for fertilization, implantation and major action on mineral, carbohydrate, protein and lipid metabolism. So the natural estrogens which are available in our body are the estradiol, estrone and estradiol. Now how these are produced? So we should know what is the biosynthesis of the estrogens. First, cholesterol. You all know that corticosteroids are also produced from cholesterol. Like that, cholesterol also help in the production of this estrogen and progesterone. Now coming to cholesterol, this cholesterol will convert into pregnenolone, 17 alpha hydroxypregnenolone, then to dehydroepiandrosterone, then to androstenedione, then to testosterone. This testosterone in the presence of aromatase will get converted into 17 beta estradiol. Now this 17 beta estradiol is the one which is produced from the ovaries and which is the active ingredient, okay, or the active form of estrogens. Now again the androstenedione is also with the help of aromatase can be converted into estrone. Now I told you there are three natural estrogen forms are available, that is estradiol, estriol and estrone. Now I told you that 17 beta estradiol is produced from the ovary, which is the active form, whereas estrone is produced from the androstenedione from the extragranular tissues. Okay, there is extragranular tissues, it will be converted into estrone. Androstenedione will be converted into estrone. Now what is estradiol? Estradiol is a conjugate metabolites of estradiol and also estrone. So this is the weakest form. The estradiol is a weakest form. Now but why these forms are there? What is the importance of these forms? Estradiol and estrone, if you take both this, estradiol is a normal, which is active form, are the produced in the non-pregnant and also pre-menstrual women. So this is the estradiol. Whereas estrone is produced from the, it is more common in case of the men and the postmenopausal women. When you see a urine examination, if you see postmenopausal women, estrone will be there, not the estradiol. Now what happened in case of pregnancy? Pregnancy, mostly the fetoplacental unit is the one which will produce the estrone. Okay, now this is the one which this slide will show you that androstenedione will be converted into aromatase. In the presence of aromatase will be converted to estrone. Now this estrone sulfate by the help of sulfotransferase will form into estrone sulfate and estradiol will go converted into estradiol sulfate. Okay, now some difference we will see between estrogen and progesterone. Estrogen induce estrous cycle, whereas progesterone favors pregnancy. It was discovered in 1923, estrogen, whereas progesterone was discovered in 1929. What are the synthetic forms of these estrogens? Steroidal and non-steroidal. Steroidal, ethinyl estradiol, mestranol, tibolone, diethylstilbestrol, hexatrol, tenesterol. Then progesterone synthetic agent are norethindrone, lenesterol, alesterol, levonorgestrel, desogestrel. The natural are the estrone, estradiol, estradiol. We already covered. Progesterone, 19 not testosterone. I will cover in the progesterone. Now coming to actions, 6 are pubertal changes, uterus, fallopian growth, vagina, endometrial proliferation, and also it causes the increase of the M.B.B.S, due to which there will be increase of the production of nitric oxide and also prostaglandin production. whereas in the progesterone will causes the uterus secretory changes, then hyperemia, stroma enlarged, Monge gland atrophy. So there is also weak inhibition of GnRH, degrees of the malignancy. Okay. Now, what is the neuroendocrine control of a menstrual cycle? I already told you estrogen, why it is required in our body. It is required for the maturation. It is required for the menstrual cycle. It is also required for the bones, for the metabolism. All already have a slow. Now, what is the neuroendocrine control of the menstrual cycle? A neuroendocrine cascade involving the hypothalamus, pituitary, and ovaries control the menstrual cycle. Now, how this cascade will be there? Like from the hypothalamus, there will be release of the GnRH. From GnRH, it will go into the anterior pituitary. When there is a stimulus from this, there is the anterior pituitary will release the FSH and LH. Okay. Now, this FSH and LH act on the ovary to produce estrogen and progesterone. Now, a neuromuscular oscillator in the hypothalamus fires at interval that coincide with the burst of GnRH release into the hypothalamo-pituitary portal vasculature. Now, whenever there is a neuroendocrine stimulation to the hypothalamus, it will fire at intervals that will coincide with the GnRH. Now, GnRH will be released in the hypothalamo-pituitary portal hypothalamus. Within the hypothalamus and the pituitary portal vasculature, it will get released. Now, this GnRH interacts with the cognate receptor. This cognate receptor will be present on the pituitary. Now, pituitary gonadotropes to cause the release of. Now, from here, there will be release of FSH and LH. Now, this GnRH will not be in a continuous phase. The release of the GnRH will not be in a continuous manner. It will be a pulsatile manner. The frequency of GnRH pulses, which varies in the different phases of menstrual cycles, controls the relative synthesis of FSH and LH. The gonadotropins regulate the growth and maturation of the Graafian follicle. Because the release of GnRH is intermittent, because it is intermittently releases, when there is an intermittent stimulation to release of the anterior pituitary, to release LH and FS from the anterior pituitary, so that the FS and LH also is a pulsatile manner. Understood? Because there is release of GnRH is intermittent, LH and FSH secretion is also pulsatile. Now, before going into details, what are the actions of estrogen, what are the physiology, what is the mechanism, we will first cover what is the menstrual cycles. First, briefly, I will tell you what is the menstrual cycle, what happens to the levels of all the hormones, all this thing. First, we'll go. You can see in this figure, you can see there is a in a green line, green which is showing the follicular phase. The yellow which is showing luteal phase. You can see a blue mark which is showing ovulation, and it is varying different. Mostly it is 1 to 5 days the menstruation. So what happens during this thing? First, it can be divided into follicular phase and the luteal phase. Why it is divided into follicular phase and luteal phase? Follicles will be formed in the follicular phase. That's why it is named as follicular phase. Luteal phase, because corpus luteum will be there, that's why it is named as luteal phase. Another name is the proliferative phase and the secretory phase. That proliferative phase is the follicular phase, where there is a proliferation, endometrium proliferation, that is named as proliferative phase. Whereas it is a luteal phase is named as secretory phase. Why it is named as secretory phase is because there is the uterus will go into secretory phase. That's why it is a secretory. So the luteal phase is also known as secretory phase. The follicular phase is also known as proliferative phase. Now, what happens? Again we can divide this cycle into menstrual cycle, menstrual phase, pre-ovulatory phase, and post-ovulatory phase. What is this one? Menstrual phase. What happens in the menstrual phase? In this, it is starting from the first day to the 5th day of the menses or the cycle. Okay, in the 28 days cycle. Normally the cycle will be 28 days. It may be from 28 to 32 days. Okay, why the constant, the luteal phase will be always constant. It is only 14 days. Whereas the follicular phase, the length of the cycle will be determined by the follicular phase, not the luteal phase. Luteal phase will always be constant, whereas the follicular phase will determine the length of the cycle. Okay. Now, during the menstrual phase, there will be increase of the FSH. So this FSH causes the increase of the primary follicles. Now this primary follicles at the end of the menstrual phase, they will convert it into secondary follicles. Okay, now from the 6th day to the 13th day, we will call this as a pre-ovulatory, because it is occurring before the ovulation. So pre-ovulatory phase, what happened? What hormones are responsible for this? Here the most important is the FSH and the estrogen. When there is after this secondary follicles about 20 will grow, and in that only one will get matured. This matured follicle is known as Graafian follicle. Matured Graafian follicle. When it is formed, the estrogen, the modest level of estrogen causes negative feedback on the anterior pituitary to stop the release of FSH. Now this FSH will stop the formation of the follicles, and it will get degenerated. Now you have a mature Graafian follicle. After that, because there is this will causes release of the, I told you, as you can see, the progesterone has only the negative feedback, whereas estrogen have both negative and positive feedback to the anterior pituitary. Now here it will, after the formation of mature Graafian follicle, it will produce because it is decreased, it will produce a positive feedback to the anterior pituitary to release more of LH. Now LH will be released more, that is known as LH surge. Because of the LH surge, the ovulation occurs. What happens? During the ovulation, there will be rupture of the mature Graafian follicles, and there will be release of the oocyte, secondary oocyte. Now this ruptured Graafian follicles and also the follicles which are remaining get enlarged, and they will produce into corpus luteum. Now this corpus luteum is act like an endocrine gland and will produce the hormones like estrogen, progesterone, relaxin and inhibin. Okay, now after on the 14th day, this ovulation occurs. From 14th to 28th day, we call this as a luteal phase, because we are having a corpus luteum which is responsible for the release of estrogen and progesterone. Now estrogen, progesterone, inhibin and relaxin. Estrogen, now there is increase of the relaxin. It is interesting to know that in the presence of estrogen and in the presence of progesterone, estrogen cannot produce positive feedback to the anterior pituitary. Now here in the follicular phase, you will have the more of the hormone of FSH and estrogen. Here luteal phase, the more of the hormone will be the LH. Okay. Now after this ovulation is occurring, after it is there is more of the estrogen and progesterone. Now this will causes the progesterone will causes the uterus take the uterus to the secretory phase. Why? Because to take the secondary oocyte which has been released into the which is coming from the fallopian tube. So here the uterus will be secretory phase. Now after that, what happens? If there is any implantation or the fertile ovum is coming, if there is an implantation, they will land into pregnancy. If there is no implantation, now there is more release of progesterone and estrogen. Now they will send positive or negative feedback to the anterior pituitary to stop the production of LH. Okay, LH will be decreased. Now, because on side by side there will be increase of the FSH. Now when there is increase of the FSH, the menstruation, the second menses will start. Okay, follicular phase will start. This is the overview of a menstrual cycle. Suppose if there is an implantation, what will happen? Okay, what I told you about the estrogen and progesterone, they are necessary. Now there is a fetal placental unit that will produce estrogen and progesterone. Now what is the use of this inhibin and relaxin? We don't want in pregnancy, we don't want more of the follicles to get matured, or we don't want the follicles to form. So inhibit the release of FSH. Okay, then what is the effect of relaxin? Relaxin will relax the symphysis pubis, which is used for during the delivery of the baby. In this diagram, you can see all the phases which I told you. So this is the follicular phase and the luteal phase, and you can see the red line which is the FSH. and the black line, which is the LH. You can see during the 14th day there is increase of the LH. Now you can see estrogen in the dark blue color and the progesterone in sky blue. There is the increase of the progesterone, and again there is decrease, and there is a steepening of the estrogen, whereas progesterone, there is increase in the luteal phase. Okay. Now what happens to the uterus, ovaries, ovarian cycle? There is release of the follicles. You can see there is a release of the follicles here. Okay, there is release of the follicles here. This is the ovulation, then there is a follicles. Now you are seeing, you can see here, this is the menstrual, then there is the proliferative phase, and this is a secretory phase. Okay. Now here you can see endometrium. Endometrium is thickened. Okay. Here endometrium is thickened. Now at a glance, I have told you about the menstrual cycle. Now you should know what is the specific role of FSH in case of females and in case of males. In females, it helps in the growth, development and maturation of the Graafian follicle. I told you. It stimulates estrogen production from the growing follicles. Now the growing follicles will increase the estrogen. When there is more of the estrogen, that will produce a positive feedback to release LH. Then only LH surge will occur, that will cause ovulation. What it causes in the males? It exerts tropic influence on seminiferous tubules and promote spermatogenesis. What is the role of LH? In females, I told you it is induce ovulation, promote reorganization of ruptured follicles super corpus luteum, and promotes production of progesterone from it. In male, it is also called as interstitial cell stimulating hormone. It stimulates the production of testosterone from interstitial cells of pelvic. Human chorionic gonadotropin. When it is released in human chorionic gonadotropin released from the chorionic villi during pregnancy. Okay, similar to LH in its action. Release of gonadotropin. What is the regulation? Hypothalamic regulation, negative feedback influenced by the gonadal hormone. I already told you in the previously how this is the hypothalamus stimulation occur, neuroendocrine stimulation. Then there will be hypothalamic regulation. Then negative feedback, whenever there is a more of the estrogen and the progesterone, they will produce negative feedback to the anterior pituitary. Then feedback influence of gonadal steroids. Gonadal hormone exerts a negative feedback at hypothalamus and pituitary level. Progesterone and testosterone exert negative feedback. I told you this will only have the negative feedback, whereas estrogen will show the biphasic influence. I already told you when there is a increase of the estrogen, it can produce actually it will produce negative feedback, but when it will produce positive feedback to produce more of the LH to produce ovulation. Okay. Physiologically, with increase of the plasma estrogen and mid cycle exerts a positive feedback. Sudden increased sensitivity of gonadotroph causing massive release of LH, which leads to ovulation. Pharmacological dose from bringing of the menstrual cycle suppress ovulation. Then hypothalamic regulation. So hypothalamic regulation, gonadotropin releasing hormone are the GnRH, then gonadotropin. Special regulatory hormone from the hypothalamus selectively stimulate anterior pituitary gonadotroph to release FSH and LH. Release of GnRH follows a pulsatile manner. I told you it is a pulsatile manner. It is not a continuous. Remember, it is not a continuous process. It is follows a pulsatile manner. Continuous pattern causes down regulation of GnRH receptor. This is the reason why there is release of GnRH is a pulsatile manner, not in a continuous manner. Okay. If there is a continuous pattern, what will happen? There will be down regulation of this receptor. When there is down regulation of receptors, there will be no release of FSH and LH, and there is no release of estrogen and progesterone. Adverse effects of gonadotropins: excessive ovarian stimulation, bilateral cystic enlargement of ovaries, ovarian rupture can occur that lead to hemoperitoneuria. Then multiple pregnancy, fetal wastage, increased risk of ectopic pregnancy. Okay. Why? Because ovarian stimulation will be more. Due to which there will be more of the follicular formation, and because there is more of the stimulation for the ovaries, what will happen? Ovaries get enlarged. Then they will go into cystic enlargement, and because the ovaries have been enlarged to such extent, they will lead to ovarian rupture, and because of that there will be hemiparatonium. Then multiple pregnancy by the, because more of the follicles can go into mature stage, that's why they can have multiple pregnancy. Estrogens indicates a group of natural, semi-synthetic and synthetic. What are the natural? Estrone, estradiol, estradiol. Why when there is a natural, why we are making synthetic compound? Because natural have more, will have shorter duration of action, they will easily get degraded, and also they cannot be given orally. Now this this estrogens can be steroidal and non-steroidal substance. It has the ability to induce estrus in immature animals. Whenever any product has to be coming to market, it has to be done in the animals. They have done in the animals, and they have found out that it has the ability to induce estrous cycle. Now classification. Natural, estradiol, estrone, estradiol. Synthetic, steroidal, ethinyl estradiol, mestronol, fenestrol. Non-steroidal is silpextrol, chlorothiazidine, it is not used now, diacetyl, hexasterol. Now this is the one which I was telling in the previous classes. This is C, hypothalamus, then you will have the GnRH. Then pituitary will causes the release of FSH and LH. This FSH and LH will act on the estrogen and progesterone, act on the ovaries to produce estrogen and progesterone. Whereas this in males it acts on the testes to produce testosterone. Whenever the level is high, they will produce a negative feedback to the pituitary or the hypothalamus to stop the release of this estrogen and progesterone. Now, pharmacodynamics, it is very important, or the mechanism of action. It can be direct, mediated by the receptor, or indirect, mediated by autopoietin produced by the target cells in response to estrogen. Rapid estrogen mediated effects by intracellular signaling pathway. Now, whenever there is receptors, now here estrogen will have two types of receptors, ER alpha and ER beta. Okay, this specific intracellular receptor predominantly nuclear bound to histone protein 90. Where these receptors are unstable. Now because of that they have to bind to a histone protein. Whenever there is estrogen is there or the agonist is there, when this receptor will bind to the hormone and there will be release of this HSP90. Now this will go and they will regulate the gene transcription. You can see in this diagram where you can see there is a receptor. See, this is a receptor and this is a HSP19, because it is it has to bind, it will get stable. Now whenever this is formed, this steroid will bind or the estrogen will bind to with receptor, this will get dissociated from this steroid receptor complex. Now this steroid receptor complex cannot go single, they will bind with the other steroid receptor complex. This is known as steroid receptor dimer. It is a homomer because it is a binding to the same thing. Okay, now they will go into the nucleus where there will be transcription. Okay, then there will be formation of mRNA, then there will be proteins, then there will be response. Okay, this is a receptor mediated. So I told you there are ER alpha and ER beta receptor. ER alpha will be present in the female genital tract, ovary, breast, bone, liver, hypothalamus and the vascular tissue. Beta receptor, it has a limited distribution in the prostate, ovary, brain, vascular tissue. See, you can see here it is common in ER beta and ER alpha, both are present in the ovary, okay, and the vascular tissue. So what are the actions, why it is needed in the body? Because there is how a lot of actions in our body, like development of female reproductive tract. Female reproductive tract will not only have the vagina, uterus and fallopian tube, it is also have the mammary glands. So when the development of the female reproductive tract, vagina, uterus and the fallopian tube. Then induce pubertal changes in the females, development of breast, accelerated growth pace, distribution of fat, appearance of axillary and pubic hair, and then development of feminine behavior. If these will cause us the induce the pubertal changes in the females. What happened in the endometrium? I already told you. If you remember what I told you in the menstrual cycle, it is responsible for the proliferative phase of the endothelium or endometrium. Synthesizes the uterus to oxytocin and prostaglandins. Vaginal epithelium will become stratified and hornified. So here you can see it has the tendency to sensitize the uterus to oxytocin and prostaglandins. Then coming to metabolic effect, it is very important that have an anabolic effect, positive nitrogen and calcium balance. This is very important. It increases the bone mass, it increases the apoptosis of the osteoclast, increases the expression of bone matrix proteins, induce renal hydroxylase which generate active form of vitamin D3 and promote fusion of bone epiphyses in both males and females. Say, one is increases the bone mass. Because of that only, in postmenopausal woman there will be more of the osteoporosis chances in the postmenopausal woman. There is very less chances of osteoporosis are negligible in case of premenopausal women. Now, osteoblasts are responsible for bone formation, whereas osteoclast will be bone resorption. So what it causes? It causes the apoptosis and cell death of this osteoclast, and also increases the expression of bone matrix. And we need an active form of vitamin D. So where it is produced in the renal cells. So renal hydroxylase will be produced, which will produce a vitamin D3, and also it promotes the fusion of bone epiphyses in both males and females. Now you can see in this diagram I have shown you in this slide that estrocytes, osteoblasts and osteoclasts, it have action on all this. It decreases apoptosis or other mechanism, it decreases activation of bone remodeling. It decreases apoptosis, decreases oxidative stress and maintenance of the bone formation. It increases apoptosis, decreases rankile induced differentiation. Already whatever loss has been happened, it cannot remodel that bone. It has only the tendency to not have the further damage to the bone. Okay. Now, hepatic metabolism alteration leads to increase of the plasma levels of sex hormone binding globulin, thyroxine binding globulin, and CBC renin substrate. Promote retention of sodium on water in tissue and lipid profile. This is very important to know that lipid profile. For a favorable effect, the decrease of the plasma cholesterol levels, decrease of the LDL, and increase of the HDL levels and triglyceride levels, and rather HDL and LDL ratio. That's why this is have the cardiovascular protection in case of premenopausal women, and in case of estrogen, when we are giving in a postmenopausal women, it will have a beneficial effect initially, but later because there is a no clear-cut studies have been done that proving that it have a beneficial effect in the postmenopausal women. Then blood coagulation, very important, induce the synthesis of clotting factors and decreases the antithrombin 3, decreases platelet adhesion. So adhesiveness of the platelets will be decreased, and they have the ability to synthesize the clotting factors. Okay. Then, and slightly facilitate fibrinolysis. And what other things? Estrogen responsible for maintenance of structure and function of blood vessels. I already told you in the previous slides. It induces NO synthetase. What happens when it is releasing NO synthetase? It will happen the production of nitric oxide. Nitric oxide and prostaglandin produces vasodilatation. Okay, so it have a beneficial effect on the maintenance of the structure and function of the blood vessel. Anti-androgenic effect directly reduce the effect of androgen on target tissues and by decreases gonadotropin output. Increase lithogenicity of the pile. What is lithogenicity here? It means it has the ability to produce gallstones. So when it is increasing the erythrogenicity, probability of forming of the gallstones will be more. Or one of the side effects we can say when you are giving a estrogen, it will have the formation of gallstones. Now, feedback on the hypothalamo-pituitary axis. Estrogen physiologically exerts biphasic response. Pharmacological dose, negative feedback on FSH and LH and suppress ovulation. Where you need to have a pharmacological dose when you are giving, it will cause a negative feedback on the FSH and LH and will suppress ovulation. When you need this, when you want to suppress ovulation, it is in case of when you are giving the contraception. In that cases, you don't want ovulation, you don't want pregnancy. In that cases, you need to suppress the ovulation. When you give a pharmacological dose, that will cause a negative feedback on the FSH and LH and suppress the ovulation. Oncogenic action, very important, because when you are having, because I told you in the previous classes, what is the action of estrogen on the breast? It is causes the more proliferation, or ductus will be more, mammary glands will get enlarged, and endometrial proliferation will be more. So whenever you are giving estrogen for a longer duration, it has a neoplastic changes. Now coming to pharmacokinetics, I already told you natural estrogens cannot be given orally. It will be degraded very easily. Why? It has the extensive first pass metabolism. Natural estrogens are ineffective by more because it is having extensive first pass metabolism. Semi-synthetic and synthetics are effective orally and local also. Okay, they can be available as a cream. Okay, and there will absorption through skin and mucous membrane will also be good. And these are largely bound to globulin. And hepatic metabolism is by glucuronidal sulfate conjugation. So what is having physical estrogens? It cannot be given orally because it is having a high first pass metabolism. Synthetic and semi-synthetic, I already told you why it is need of releasing of synthetic and semi-synthetic in the market, because of it is orally the natural estrogens cannot be given. If degradation is more and shorter duration of action, for that cases semi-synthetic and synthetics are produced which are effective orally, and it can be given locally also. Then absorption through skin and mucous membrane will also be very good and largely bound to globulin. So means it will bound to globulin, and hepatic metabolism is by glucuronidal sulfate conjugation. It undergo enterohepatic circulation. Now, adverse effects, mild adverse effects like persistent nausea and vomiting, decreased threshold of CTZ, means the threshold at which the CTZ has to be stimulated will get decreased, so to which they will have nausea and vomiting, then breast discomfort and tenderness, alteration in mood and behavior, increased thin copious vaginal secretions because it will produce the thin mucus secretions, so it will cause mucosal secretion. Then uterine bleeding, estrogen withdrawal should be done. If there is a uterine bleeding, you should withdraw the estrogens if you are giving. Now, serious adverse effects will be there, like thromboembolism, then increased ischemic heart disease, hypertension, increased cardiovascular accident, then worsening of migraine, and gastrointestinal. I told you there will be increase of the gallstone formation, and in men gynecomastia and feminization can occur because it has from the mammary glands. In young female, it causes precocious puberty. This is very important. You should never to be prescribed. In case of a young female who is not have attained menarche, because it will lead to precocious puberty. So, where it will produce neoplasia. In case of breast, it promotes neoplasia of the breast, endometrium, cervical. There will be endometrium, cervical adenocarcinoma, benign hepatoma. Then it's very important, diethylstilbestrol administered to a pregnant woman in first trimester increases the incidence of vaginal and cervical carcinoma in the female offspring. You don't know whether the baby is male or female. If you go on giving dihydrotestosterone to a pregnant woman, then there will be increase of this incidence of vaginal and cervical carcinoma if the baby is female. Now, what are the side effects? At a glance, what happens in the males, children, I will tell you. Now, in case of males, I already told gynecomastia, feminization, suppression of libido will also be there. Then children, if you are giving children, I told you estrogen causes the fusion of the epiphysis. So when you are giving in a children, what happens? One is a precocious puberty, the adult is the fusion of the epiphysis. If there is a fusion of the epiphysis, what will happen? The structure or the size of the will be decreased, or the height of the child will get decreased. There is reduction of the other structure. Postmenopausal women who are on the HRT, risk of irregular bleeding and endometrial carcinoma. Why? Because already it has a tendency to produce endometrial carcinoma. And existing breast cancer, if you are giving, already the patient is having a breast cancer, if you are giving, there will be more growth of the existing breast cancer. Women under long-term estrogen therapy, what happened? Increase in stress of gallstone, benign hepatoma, comorbidity, worsening of migraine. I told you it is having the tendency to produce migraine. Why? Because it is causing vasodilatation. Migraine is due to be because of the vasodilatation. Then epilepsy will occur. Then endometriosis will occur. Then pregnant women, especially first trimester, what you should not do? Estrogen should not be given. What happened? If you are giving estrogen, it will cause vaginal and cervical carcinoma in the female offspring, in the children and early adult. Okay. So I told you what are the semi-synthetic and synthetic. Now, what preparations are available? So the natural steroidal estrogen, ethanol benzoate, cypionate, ethanate, volvurate are available. Then synthetic steroidal estrogens, ethinyl estradiol, orally active, mestranol, product of ethinyl estradiol, cholesterol, tibolone. Ethinyl estradiol which is orally active. Mestranol is a product of this ethinyl estradiol. Means this will convert it into again to ethinyl estradiol. But when you are giving a powder, the duration of action will be more. And cholesterol and tibolone. Then synthetic non-steroidal dihydrotestosterone, which I told you now only, and dinesterol, topical and vaginal cream. I told you this will be can be given orally because it have more good absorption through the skin and mucous membrane. Now another form is also available, that transdermal patch. It have minimum side effects with favorable effects on bone. Estradiol TTS. And it will be available in 3 sizes, namely 5, 10 and 20 centimeter square, delivering 0.025 milligram, 0.05 milligram and 0.1 milligram respectively in 24 hours for 3 to 4 days. Now, what it is doing, it will increase the compliance of the patient or not, because you are giving for 3 to 4 days one patch enough, it will be releasing its drug. Okay. Then the usual dose in menopause is 0.05 milligram per day, which produces plasma estradiol levels seen in premenopausal level in the early or mid follicular phase. Now, how you need to give this? You should not give continuously, remember. Cyclical therapy, 3 weeks on, 1 day week off. With estradiol, TTS is advised with an oral progesterone added for the last 10 to 12 days. So whenever you are giving cyclical therapy, you need to give only for 3 days, 1 week off. Then with an oral progesterone added in the last week. Systemic side effects of estradiol are the same as with oral, which I told you, but will be milder. Oral therapy delivers high dose of hormone to the liver and increases the synthesis of cerebral proteins. Now, at a glance, we should know what are I have told you all these things. In the afternoon class, I will tell you the remaining thing. Here, at a glance, we will summarize what we have learned today. Now, starting from the menstrual cycle, we will call this as proliferative phase or the follicular phase, or the luteal, and the second is the luteal phase or the secretory phase. Now, estrogen will have both the biphasic response. It has a negative feedback and also positive feedback. Positive feedback, when it is occurring, it increases the release of LH, that will cause LH surge, that will cause the ovulation. Naturally, we are having 3 things, that is estradiol, and estrone. Then estradiol is a conjugate metabolite of estrone and estradiol. Estrone is produced in the man and postmenopausal women, and estradiol is a active form which is produced from the ovary. It is present in non-pregnant women and also in the premenopausal women. Then in case of pregnant women, fetal-maternal unit will be responsible for the production of this estrogen and progesterone. Then what is the mechanism? It acts through the cytosolic receptors. So they will dimerization, then there will be gene transcription, then there will be release of the mRNA and proteins into response. It has two types of receptors, ER alpha and ER beta receptors. When then where it is why it is needed? One is for the pubertal changes, then growth and development of graphene follicles, then there will be what are the graphene follicles, then it is used in the metabolic regions, it is used, and in the bone what it is doing in increasing the bone mass and also increasing the apoptosis of the osteoclast. Then it is also because it is estrogen will have the oncogenic effect, will causes the increase of the risk of breast and endometrial carcinoma. Then the side effects include you will have nausea and vomiting, then cardiovascular abnormalities will be there, then GIT, they will have more of the gallstone formation, then there will be, if you are giving this drug in the pregnant women, they will the offspring of that woman will have vaginal and cervical carcinoma. Then we are having different preparations, like because natural cannot be given orally, and they will have extensive advanced metabolism and also having shorter duration of action. We have synthetic and synthetic compounds. These can be given orally. More it can have absorption through the skin and mucous membrane, and because we are also having transdermal patch. Transdermal patch will have lesser side effects, and compliance with the transdermal patch will be more. And this whenever you are giving any estrogen, it should be in a cyclical manner, like 3 weeks on and 1 week off. Okay, thank you. End of the year,